Hello and welcome back to Talking Giants, brought to you by SeatGeek. It is Monday, November 24th, and the New York Football Giants have fired Shane Bowen. They have fired Shane Bowen. The world is rejoicing. Now, I wish I could sit here and I could be like, yes, he's gone. Like, oh, things are going to get so much better. But, dude, Shaun, much like everything the Giants do now, it's not just better than it's not better late than never. Like, I don't have that sentiment. Yes, it's true, but it's too late because the Giants have wasted away another season. They have wasted away a season where we have seen an offense with two different quarterbacks now put up a lot of points and look really good and get off the fast starts. The season's been wasted largely because they kept this guy employed. But with that being said, this needed to be done after blowing 5 double-digit leads. Shaun, the Giants have fired Shane Bowen. How are you?
I guess I'm good. I'm better than Shane Bowen today. Probably not, because he's still going to make a nice fatter paycheck than either you or I off of this. You know, Justin, yes, on the surface, it is too little too late. And I got to be honest, I'm a little stunned knowing the family business that is the New York Giants, that they didn't do this 2 weeks ago. They didn't do it last week. They do it now in the week of Thanksgiving. It just, everything seems thrown off. But here's why I don't think it's too little too late. I think there's a sense that the players simply do not believe in him. I don't think that's a newsflash by any means. And I think that as you enter an extended week here with Monday Night Football, and then you enter a bye, and then you enter the final 4 games, if you are Mike Kafka, who, whether we think it or not, thinks he's trying to coach for a job, or maybe even coach for his next job that's not here, if you are ownership that thinks it's important to have Giants like Dexter Lawrence, and dare I say, on the offensive side, Malik Neighbors, we saw his tweet after the game, be happy. I think this is probably a move that you're just trying to keep the locker room together through a lost season, through the final 5 games, and not have this thing spiral where it starts hurting you guys and hurting guys' trust into 2026. I do think that there is something tangibly there where, all right, these guys haven't believed in him, get them out of here, because you can't have these guys keep putting their bodies on the line, dealing with this losing culture and thinking the organization doesn't care.
And much like everything the Giants do, I think the point that you're getting at is that this is reactionary.
Oh, absolutely. They're never proactive. It's absolutely reactionary. Look, if you read between the lines, and Tiki, obviously, who I work with every day on The Fan, was very smart in talking about this. There was a comment by Javon Holland a couple weeks ago, and like you could start to read behind the lines. I think it was after the Bears game. And basically his feeling as a player was, you start reading some of what players are saying, and you understand they're telling you, this, talk to the coach, because the coach is not putting me in a position to succeed in the type of play I'm playing. And then you think about the whole Dexter Lawrence debacle yesterday. And after we signed off the podcast on Sunday, Justin, and the more I kind of looked into the post game, the more I got more angry at Dexter Lawrence about the idea of like not fighting your way back on the field. It's overtime. And then I woke up today as angry as I was, and I was more mad at Shane Bowen again, because you can't be sitting there with a Nick player going, oh, he can't play first, second down, all of that. And I think that speaks to him. Maybe part of Dexter Lawrence's frustration after moving out of the nose tackle spot for most of this year, and him having to deal with the shrapnel of not being as dominant a player, whether that's Dex's own doing or not, he puts on the coach not putting him in a position to succeed. So right. I just don't think you could have enough marquee defensive players who are on a defense that sucks and also feel like, you know what, we're not being in a position to succeed, and keep this guy here the rest of the year. You want these guys to be happy and want to be New York Giants in 2026. And not that this says they will be, but I think it goes in aiding that. You can't keep doing this the last 5 games of the year.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly have. We went through this yesterday too, talking about my thoughts on the whole Dexter Lawrence. I think you're right, but I think there's also another element of, well, you shouldn't have a defense. The fact that you have a defense to begin with that absolutely just falls apart.
Yep.
When one player is not on the field to allow like 60-yard plays, like they're allowing those 60-yard, 50-yard runs even with Dexter Lawrence on the field too. But still, I do want to talk about Shane Bowen's tenure as a whole, Shaun. Last year in 2024. Ironically enough, the Giants were 16th in points per drive. You want to know what they are on offense this year? 16th. You want to know what the offense was last year in points per drive? 31st. What's the defense this year? 29th. So literally the offense and defense have just switched roles and flip-flopped, and it's the complete dichotomy of each other. Historically bad run defense. Now, even though the points per drive, I will say, shines a better light on the Giants defense in 2024, I love EPA per play. EPA is basically just an efficiency metric, right? And which I like that better than just overall points and things like that. The Giants defense over the last 2 years were 30th in EPA per play, 2024 and 2025 combined, 29th in EPA per dropback, and 30th in EPA per rush. Shaun, I just never watched Shane Bowen, and I never thought that he put his defense in a position of strength or watched a Shane Bowen game plan, even where the Giants win and even where they look good. And I'm like, man, like Shane Bowen really brought an advantage here to this Giants defense. Like they didn't force turnovers. Like it was the running joke last year that the Giants don't have an interception. And then even what they did this past offseason is they invested heavily at safety. They invested heavily at cornerback. Granted, we haven't seen Paulson Adebo for the last couple of weeks, and they were playing better in coverage with Paulson Adebo. But still, they don't force turnovers, and I think a lot of that has to do with Shane Bowen, the defense coordinator, not putting his players in a position to pounce on a football. When is the last time that you saw a safety break on a football in the intermediate part of the field or the deep part of the field? You haven't seen it the last couple of years because I really feel like this defense coordinator did not put his players in an advantage, in a spot to make those plays.
Dare I say an advantageous position?
I was thinking it, but I didn't want to say it.
No, he hasn't. And I think that's what Holland was alluded to a couple weeks ago. And look, they don't blitz enough. I know like the stats on PFF will tell you they blitz, but that's really just kind of 5-man front.
It's weak.
It's not, when was the last time you saw like Jason Pinnock used to do this, where he used to fly up? You haven't seen that. Drew Phillips is a guy that should be used out of the nickel, where you could see him with his tackling ability play to his strengths. They don't play to any of these guys' strengths. And to further that, if we're just kind of thinking about who makes a decision like this, right, Justin? And we'll get to the optics later of not dumping Bowen before this season, but who makes a decision like this? My initial reaction was that ownership made this decision based on the idea of, another blown lead, another, head has to roll. But I really do, the more I've thought about this over the last hour since this broke, I do think this is a Joe Shane combo decision with Mike Kafka, who both guys, let's be honest, are playing out these strings, you would think, for their job. Maybe Joe Shane is safe, maybe he's not. And if you're going to hang your hat, if you're the general manager of this football team, on what you've done right, a lot has been made about the recent draft classes. Well, Newman and Phillips have taken massive steps backwards from their rookie years that, albeit existed under Shane Bowen. You have to pin some of the blame, if you're the general manager, on the coach. If you've already done it with Dable, on the general manager. Why is Tyler Newman looking completely lost and has no confidence this year? Why is Drew Phillips, who, graded out as one of the better corners in football, seemingly going completely backwards this year? Why are you investing in Javon Holland and until yesterday makes 0 plays all year? Why does Abdul Carter not have a sack this year when you drafted him, 3rd overall? I understand there's different circumstances for that. And why is Dexter Lawrence now off of nose tackle and going away? We all thought in August that the calling card of this team would be the defense. And to a man, I think all of us that are at least in the fan world, the content creation world, all said, the one thing that worries me about this defense is Shane Bowen. And guess what? We were proven to be right. You could have all of these guys who are names, who are players that you think have talent and ability, but the only common thread you have on all of those names I ripped off that aren't playing up to the ability we expected is the defensive coordinator, and we could see it with our own eyes every single game. It just looks like the same stale crap.
Yeah. I think there's a line, right, where obviously, like, I don't think Shane Bowen should have been kept because John Mara stands on that practice field. He stands at Quest Diagnostics, and I've talked about this over and over again because this just stuck. That last time that Mara spoke, just it hurts me because he said all of the things that he feared in January about the possibility of keeping Shane Bowen, the possibility of keeping Dable, the possibility for keeping Shane. He's like, I'm getting tired of this. He's like, I don't know if this roster is that much better than when Joe. Like, he literally said all of the fears and the reasons why everybody should be gone. And you're like, I'm gonna keep him anyway. Anyway. But anyway, about Shane Bowen, he's on that field. He's on that field, Shaun, and he's saying, I'm sick and tired of seeing defenses, opposing offenses go up and down against our defense, right? And this is a year where the Giants were 16th in points per drive on defense and 31st in offensive points per drive.
Doubled up and getting worse than the teams going up and down the field.
So we all looked at each other and we're like including like reporters, like we're like, okay, Shane Bowen's gone, right? Like, you can't have the owner just undressed the brand new defensive coordinator in a year where the defense was not great, and a defensive coordinator who I didn't watch Shane Bowen last year being like, oh man, this guy really he really made the most out of his situation. No, it wasn't as bad as the offense, but it still wasn't great. He undressed the defense coordinator, and we're all looking at each other being like, they're going to fire Shane Bowen, right? 1 week goes by, doesn't happen. 2 weeks goes by, it doesn't happen. I was like, oh, I guess this just isn't going to happen. And the only one that was held accountable was Jerome Henderson, who was the only one to publicly call out Deonte Banks, a player who is not trying and not giving effort. Something that you think that a coach should want to do is to call out and hold a player accountable for giving poor effort and giving poor play.
Can't do that, though. That was a first-round pick of Joe Shane. You can't dare call out Deonte Banks, Justin.
I think it's also a Dable thing that Dable just didn't like that too. Like, everybody is to blame. I like, this is so bad. Especially this defense. We are at a point where this defense is so bad that everybody is here sitting here being like, oh man, the Shane Bowen is the only problem, and talking about this situation like Shane Bowen is the only problem. And then when I go on and I say yes on yesterday's show, like, it is so bad that it can't just be only Shane Bowen.
Right. And
I include Joe Shane's roster in that. I'm somehow delusional for that.
No,
I don't get that, Shaun.
Yeah, look, it's an entire process, and this goes back to the typical Giant problem from the beginning. It's all about optics from the top down. Everything is done with kid gloves for optics. Okay. It's no secret when Shane Bowen got hired. All you had to do was go through the process.
He was the fourth choice.
Yeah, it seemed pretty clear Shane Bowen was not who Brian Dable wanted, probably not who Joe Shane wanted, but because everything had gone sour, because they had already started that downward trend after the Wink Martindale thing, there was this thought of, well, what kind of defensive coordinator is going to opt to choose this job as the coach's trend toward being on the hot seat? So then they hire Shane Bowen. They see that it fails. And they can't pull the ripcord because they refuse to fire the coach and the GM. Again, I don't want to hear the mentions that I don't want those guys fired. I understand that. But this led to this. Optically, they couldn't fire Shane Bowen 1 year into the job and then turn to the league and go, who wants this defensive coordinator job, when everybody knew the coach and GM were on the hot seat. So while John Mara sat up there, and I thought he spoke for everybody when he talked about we're all tired of seeing the teams go up and down the field. The truth is, it was a difficult decision that he did not make as the owner of the New York Giants to not fire Brian Dable in that spot and not realize you can't have one without the other. No defensive coordinator was coming here to take this job if you just simply fired Shane Bowen.
I don't believe that, though. Are you saying that that's what they think, or are you saying that's what you think?
Okay. I believe both. I don't believe you're getting the top coordinator. Now, could you have gotten somebody that...
obviously not.
You would have gotten somebody that went, there's 32 of these jobs, but like, what are we talking about here? Then we're just learning on the fly with, a linebackers coach or doing something like that. Like, all right. Now I can't argue that wouldn't have been a better option, seeing a miserably Shane Bowen fail, that maybe you would have caught lightning in a bottle. I can't push back on that, but I do think it's an entire trickle down to, once the Shane Bowen thing failed last year, all of those that said everybody should have been out after last year were right. Period.
I would have had way more respect for their decision-making in this process. And also, at the end of the day, I don't know who had the John Mara. Was John Mara the only one with those doubts about Shane Bowen? I highly doubt that.
No way.
Highly doubt
no
that.
way.
Somebody had to be in Mara's ear.
There's too much collaboration in that building.
Yes.
Too much.
Somebody had to be in that building telling John Mara what was likely the truth about Shane Bowen during the 2024 season, right? And even, we gave him the benefit of the doubt, too, with the secondary, too, and the lack of turnovers, where we talked about, oh, man, that secondary is so young. It's so inexperienced. Deonte Banks' CB1's not working. Cordell Flott, Nick McCloud, like all these guys, before we thought highly of Cordell Flott this year. Drew Phillips was a rookie. Tyler Nubin was a rookie. Jason Pinnock is like this newly converted safety that is now being thrusted into this lead safety role, not playing next to Xavier McKinney, right? So we wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt with the secondary, not forcing turnovers, not putting his players in a position to make plays because of that, right? But clearly there are people in that building, even after last year in January, who thought that probably saw this coming, especially even including with the horrible run defense that they also had last year with Micah McFadden, with Bobby Okereke, right? So they saw this coming. I would have had way more respect if they said, you want to know what? I don't believe in this guy. Let's get him out, and then try and think of out of the box what they went for when they hired Shane Bowen, which I don't hate the hiring of Shane Bowen. I don't hate that. That's not what I'm hating on here.
He had some success in Tennessee. He had experience. By the way,
Right.
put a pin in that because it's going to lead to when we talk more about head coach searches and all that stuff too. Put a pin in their process to hire Shane Bowen.
Right. So I don't hate, they had an exhaustive search. They had, Bobby Babbitt, a guy that they had connections to. They went after the top guys. They didn't get the top guys, so they had to settle. So now you had to know, knowing the optics of the Wink Martindale situation, Brian Dable may be tough to work with, knowing that Bowen wasn't your first choice, and also you're firing Shane Bowen too. You had to know that you would have had to get creative with this search. And even if it would have been hated on with the guy that has a lack of experience, how many of these defensive coordinators now are kind of just coming out of nowhere? Like these linebacker coach, like you said, like you're going to hire some linebacker coach. Yeah, man, you're going to hire some linebacker coach. You're going to hire some pass game coordinator. You would get somebody, even if they aren't perfect. If this Giants defense is ranked 20th instead of 30th, this season is dramatically different. Dramatically different.
Yeah. I mean, and again, I bet you if you told defensive coordinator candidates that you would have hired in February, hey, we're going to end up with Javon Holland, we're going to end up with Paulson Adebo, we're going to end up drafting Abdul Carter, all to add to this defense that you have, would that have also made it way more appealing?
Somebody would have taken the job.
At the time, somebody probably would have taken the job, but we were also fixated on quarterback, and the league was so fixated on quarterback, which they didn't inevitably do, that nobody really contemplated what more they could add to the defense. Justin, the bottom line is this. The defense is far too talented to be this pathetic. We can overanalyze the stats all we want. We could talk about maybe is the talent not as good as we thought. And boy, are there still warts, especially that other D tackle spot, especially the linebacker spot. But there is zero reason that the Giants pass rush alone, in terms of just like lining up different things, blitzes, can't look like the Houston Texans pass rush that we've seen this year.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you at least at a baseline have the talent for that. And if you still got wrecked on the run, you got wrecked on the run. But everybody focuses on how bad the run game is. They don't even have a think about all this. 5 fourth quarter blown leads. 5. For as bad as the Giants are against the run, Justin, how do you close out games in the NFL with defense when you have leads in the fourth quarter? You go hit the crap out of the quarterback and get sacks. They're not doing that. So while we focused on the run, like, where is Shane Bowen at least playing to the strengths with that? He doesn't. There's nothing exotic done. It is the same, just rush 4, randomly rush 5, hope they get home. Nobody changes a look. It is boring and uncreative. And that is how you blow fourth quarter leads when the strength of your team is closeout pass rushers not getting home.
Shaun, that is a great point. That is such a great point, and I want to hold it. I want to expand upon it. But first, I do want to talk about hymns. No, I do not want to talk about hymns.
Maybe another day you will.
Maybe another day I will. I'm going to talk about Gymshark. Today's episode is brought to you by Gymshark. Gymshark's Black Friday sale is live. Gymshark is the brand built for every type of workout, lifting, running, you name it. Rest days matter too. You know, Shaun and I like our rest days. They've got fits that are comfortable and look good when you're off the weights at the game or hitting the couch. How do you like that? Hitting the couch. I like that in the ad read. Usually you say hitting the weights. How do you like that? Designed for performance comfort, whether you're crushing reps or just hanging out, Gymshark has your back. They're the brand for activewear, working out, and hey, they're even promoting hanging out and sitting down. I'm for that. They're the brand that you think of when you work out. They've got you covered. Gymshark does gym. If you gym, you wear Gymshark. Head to gymshark.com and use JohnBoy10 to get 50% off site-wide with an extra 10% off. Perfect time to grab your gear to slim down or rest up during the off or holiday season. Thank you to Gymshark. I have never seen producer Jeff look so panicked when I first said I'm going to do one ad read, and then he said pivot. His eyes lit up. I should do that more often. Keep him on his toes.
That's great. Good job, Jeff.
Shaun, you just had a great point. You just had a great point about, especially I I'm so on the Giants run defense. The Giants run defense. It is historically bad, by the way, which I have numbers, and Doug Analytics has really gone in overnight to digging up some stuff, which I think is fun, and we're going to talk about it. Where are the Giants in sack rate this year? Where are they in sack rate? Just give me the ranking. You don't need to give me the number. Where are they in sack rate?
I'm going to say 18th, and only that high because of Burns' incredible year.
They're 23rd.
Okay.
They are 23rd.
And that includes Burns' incredible year.
That includes Burns' incredible year. Oh my God. So Burns has what? 13 sacks? He didn't get a sack yesterday. He almost had one. Brian Burns is responsible for 50% of the Giants' sacks on the season.
It's crazy. Now, I think that this is and the Giants have driven us to this as fans. Okay. Sorry, I'm knocking my microphone around. I'm very animated today. If you hear that clanking. The Giants have driven to us as fans. I'll get it out with the word salad. We get so fixated when the one glaring thing that's wrong with the team is what we focus on. And this goes back to the last few years. It's the O-line. It's the quarterback. It's the run defense. And we lose sight of the fact far too often that it is indeed more than one thing. Just because one thing is really, really bad doesn't mean something else isn't enormously important that's being let up. And I think that what I brought up with the defense is where I'm getting at here. The Giants were able to have that successful year in 2022 where they ran this kind of run-first offense with Saquon and with Daniel Jones. But remember, when everybody wants to talk about like Kayvon, Kayvon's disappointing. Kayvon Thibodeau in that rookie year was a closer. When they had leads, Packers, Commanders, Ravens. You look up who was the one making those plays to bury a team and end the game. It was Kayvon Thibodeau. You've now added Brian Burns. You've added Abdul Carter. The Giants have had similar leads to like they had in 2022. What is the major difference? They're not making closeout plays with the pass rush. You can still do that while being an absolute sieve on the ground and give up 200 yards a game if in the end your offense has done enough like it has this year to give you leads in the fourth quarter. But the reason they don't, those years with Wink Martindale, he would just bring the house. He would sit. And it's not to say that Wink Martindale's the only defensive coordinator the Giants can hire. Because I know a lot of people are going down that road of, well, if Kafka gets hired as the head coach, you could bring in Wink Martindale. Forget Wink Martindale for a second. It's just using it as an example with some of the personnel the Giants have had. Shane Bowen has just rested on his laurels and just rested on the idea that he has names up front and does nothing to kind of, show a true NASCAR package, bring a nickel corner to have somebody account for that frees up Kayvon on the other edge or Abdul Carter. It is just the same stale, boring plan. They don't have a closeout pass rush. That's on coaching to me more than it is the bodies they have. And I think that has been the biggest reason that they suck and blow leads. They would suck anyway with the rush defense, but at least with the leads the offense has given you, that is how you would win games in the fourth quarter. They don't do it.
I will say, as the season has gone on, I've been way less impressed with like Kayvon. Like I think Kayvon to start the year was awesome. But I do think the players, obviously Dexter Lawrence outside of the Green Bay game has not been great. I think at the start of the year, it was, I know there was, we were kind of waiting on the Dexter Lawrence break, but I viewed Dexter Lawrence outside of the Green Bay game as a player that, yes, is taking some steps back. Same thing with Kayvon. Abdul Carter shows flashes, but I think there are certain things that he also needs to work on himself, right? So I don't, again, like you said, it's everything, and I think that's a great point of it's not just one thing. Like you want to rally around blaming one thing, and if you fix that one thing, everything else will be better, right? I still think there, to a certain point, there is a player problem, but your whole point of at the end of the game, right? At the end of the game. Like a 3rd and 8, right? 3rd and 8 game on the line. What Wink Martindale is going to do, even if he doesn't bring 8, he may show 8.
Yeah, right.
He may show 8, and it gets you thinking. It gets you thinking about, oh man, are they gonna come? What are they gonna do? So I think the NFL is trending back in that direction. It's a very cyclical league, right? And what works and what doesn't work.
Sure.
Where I think back in 2011 through 2015, like that era. Where 2011, how many quarterbacks were throwing for 5,000 yards? You had, Eli almost threw for 5,000. You had Breeze throw for 5,000. You had Stafford throw for 5,000. You had all these guys throw for 5K, right?
Rodgers.
So that era of football was, we're going to blitz and we're going to play a lot of man coverage. So then offenses evolved to the point where they were getting beat by the big play. It evolves, right? We're showing more cover 3. We're playing more too high. We're going to keep everything in front of us. And that's where I think Shane Bowen has kind of gone wrong, where in these situations where it's most important to clamp down, somebody has to step up and make a play at the end of the game, especially when you know a team is going to throw the ball. Teams today are going to take the intermediate part of the field. They're going to take the short part of the field. They're just going to take what they give you, regardless, even if there's 34 seconds left and they need a field goal and they need 55 yards, they're going to take that shit. You got to force them. You got to take it away. You have to take it away from them.
Yes.
And you have to throw the curveball and you have to throw the changeup. And that's something like a Wake Martindale does, a Vance Joseph does. And even not even coordinators that blitz a lot, but Vic Fangio, he will do that himself, but just in a different way of disguising stuff on the back end. And that's supposedly what Shane Bowen was going to do, but he never did.
No, and he was stubborn. He was stubborn. Even if that wasn't who he wanted to be, just go down the list of these losses we had this year before the Jackson Dart era started, the Dallas game. He let Dak Prescott sit back there and pat a football and make 2 plays to get up there with Brandon Aubrey's kicking range. Okay, that happened. They got burned. They turned the page. They never learned from that. The Denver game late. I mean, there were times, and I know that game was so chaotic. Bo Nix is getting rid of the ball quick, fine. He's still baking a cake back there. The Caleb Williams. I mean, guys, when Caleb Williams is escaping your 4-man rush and we're relying on, well, look, the pressures were there. No. You have to find a way to bring a spy, somebody to take him down. You lost your game that way. Like, he never learned from the Cowboy game on. And it should be no surprise he didn't, because this is who he was ahead of this. But it's absurd. Like, when you see the stat yesterday that they've gotten to 5 fourth quarter blown leads, that should never happen. I don't care if the schedule is hard. That is showing an unwillingness, especially when it all looks the same. Every time the Giants have blown a fourth quarter lead, it all looks exactly the same. That's an unwillingness of coach to go, here we go again in the same spot. What can I do differently to not allow this to happen and not allow the Lions to kick a 59-yard field goal to tie the game? He never learned from his mistakes, and you should be fired after that.
Yeah. All right, you want to talk about just how bad this run defense is and how historically bad it is?
Yeah, I know we hit on the Sunday pod. Make sure if you're just tuning into this, you listen to that a little bit about, linebacker being a need. But yeah, this all ties in. Go ahead.
I have numbers now, which is awesome. So the Giants have allowed 5.9 yards per carry in 2025. Shaun, that's not only the worst in the NFL this year.
That's unbelievable.
That is the worst all time during the Super Bowl era.
That's crazy.
5.9 yards per carry.
And again, this is a team, and forget the declining play, that has Dexter Lawrence on it, that has Bobby Okereke on it, that has, you would think, a good tackling nickel corner and Drew Phillips on it. And they're still that bad.
The Giants defense, and this is Doug Analytics, where he gets cooking. Giants defense has allowed 5.43 yards per designed rush. This is no QB scrambles this year. Great news. It's not the worst. That's not the worst when you take out the QB scrambles. But through 12 weeks, it's the second worst yards per rush for any defense since 2000. So it's not the worst. It's the second worst.
Great.
And hey, if you like some EPA stuff, but stay with me. This is a really good point that Doug made. So you know how elite the Colts rushing offense is, right?
Yes, of course.
They have 0.171 EPA per rush, expected points added per rush, right? That's really good. It's like the best in the league right now. They're so explosive. They're so good. That offensive line's really good. Jonathan Taylor's awesome, right? Well, the Giants' rush defense has allowed 0.193 EPA per rush. That is worse/better than what the Colts are doing right now. The Giants run defense is so bad, it's like they played the Colts elite run offense every week, except they're still worse. It's like playing the Colts every week.
And it's still worse.
And it's still worse than playing the Colts every single week that has the best rushing attack and the best scoring offense in the league right now.
And we're in awe every week when you see Jonathan Taylor running like a gazelle, and the Giants are worse than what we look at in awe of how dominant that is. That's crazy.
It's like playing the Colts every week, except the worst.
And it makes sense, right? Think about Christian McCaffrey wasn't having the year that he's usually had. Saquon Barkley still, by the way, hasn't kept having the year we thought he was going to have after killing the Giants. The Giants just let these guys just go off. Jahmyr Gibbs yesterday. It's insulting to people watching football.
All right, so Shaun, I do want to talk about what's next and what the expectations are. The Giants did name outside linebackers coach Charlie Bowen as interim defensive coordinator.
We can talk about that too. I don't know what you wanted to, but that's important. I think there's something important there.
Yeah, but first, I do want to talk about DraftKings, because this episode is sponsored by our partners over at the DraftKings Sportsbook. One touchdown can change everything: the crowd, the momentum, the game itself, and never gets old. Feel that same rush with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, where every touchdown can bring you closer to cashing in. With DraftKings Sportsbook, all the action's in your hands. First touchdown, anytime touchdown, live bets, every play, every snap, every game matters. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code JMFootball. Let's go JMFootball. Bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours. I had a really nice parlay yesterday. I had Lions money line, Jahmyr Gibbs 50+ rushing yard. Like my idea is just go super conservative on everything. Lions money line, Jahmyr Gibbs 50+ rushing yards, Jameis Winston 150+ passing yards, which looking back at that in retrospect right now, that could have all been a lot higher. Patriots money line, Seahawks money line, Ravens money line, Patrick Mahomes 15+ rushing yards, and Jags spread, which that was the closest one.
That was tight.
That's a plus 545. Easy money.
I love it.
Easy money. All right, but Charlie Bowen, man. Giants name outside linebacker Charlie Bowen as interim defense coordinator. It's always tough to get a read on who these position coaches are, especially, basically anybody that doesn't have a track record of calling plays in the NFL. It's tough for us to sit here and be like, this guy's good, this guy's bad.
Okay, so here's my read on this. I think when we all had discussions about Shane Bowen being fired, we heard the name Andre Patterson a ton. Obviously, he was a co-defensive coordinator at one point with the Vikings. We heard Marquand Manuel. Obviously, he was a defensive coordinator for a little bit with Atlanta. Those were the two names that I already pointed to because of experience. And then when the news breaks, I think Josina Anderson, ironically, was the first person I saw that had Charlie Bowen there. I was like, what? Yeah. Whoa, this is not what I was expecting. So here's my deep thought analysis that I have no insight on. I could be wrong on. We don't know to this day who were Dable guys, right? And Mike Kafka feels to be protecting that, right? He already promoted Tim Kelly as opposed to going Shea Tierney, who was a Dable guy. Maybe Patterson was a Dable guy, or maybe we're just not rewarding Andre Patterson, who up front, defensive line-wise, we keep giving him bouquets of flowers, and they keep getting crushed on the run. Don't know what the deal is with Manuel, but I thought Bullen was interesting here because it kind of ties into what we were talking about earlier. Bullen's track record working his way up here feels like actually the kind of swing we were talking about, where maybe this guy could be a decent defense coordinator. Unfortunately for him, he's not going to be the DC here next year, but I'm interested to see what he has. Now, right off the bat, what's telling? He's the outside linebackers coach. I think this is important for the final 5 weeks of the year from this. The one position group we feel like has the most talent that maybe this is the wrong word to say, but you'll understand what I mean. You take the eye off the ball a little bit and be able to focus on the entire defense. It's probably the outside linebackers. You trust Brian Burns. You know Kayvon's a pro. And then maybe his working with Abdul Carter allows him now as a defensive coordinator to maybe let Abdul Carter kind of play into some of the strength stuff because he is the most integral at knowing him as being the outside linebackers coach. So I do think that that's important. Also, he's a Vance Joseph descendant, worked under Vance Joseph at a couple stops, which is obviously a very good defensive mind to have. And maybe he has some thoughts of his own. Aggressive, right, that he could bring to the table. I got to think behind the scenes the last 2 weeks of Mike Kafka, as much as this might have been backstabbing, he's probably had to get a feel for this staff and what he's looking for out of his own, head coaching mind and what he wants out of a defense. And maybe just in his conversations with Charlie Bowen, knowing him all around, he said, this is a guy who's going to get it and maybe make the most of this opportunity and not just sit back and maybe the defense will look slightly different the final 5 games as opposed to, like, if they hired Andre Patterson, did we think it was really going to look that different the final 5 games? So I don't know. I'm actually more intrigued by Charlie Bowen being the DC than I would have been. By the way, not knowing anything about him, barely knew he existed before an hour ago, than I would have been just with Emmanuel Andre Patterson thing where I'm expecting the same old, same old. And maybe it is the same old, but at least I'm more intrigued by this.
They're going to look better, by the way. You want to know why? Because they're playing the Patriots are going to be good. Patriots are going to be a tough test, national television. But then they come after the bye.
Oh, right.
The three games they have after the bye are the Commanders, where Jaden Daniels probably not a quarterback. Vikings, which JJ McCarthy is now
he stinks.
Efficiency wise is now up there with Jamarcus Russell. That's not an exaggeration. the Raiders, who just fired their offensive coordinator themselves,
Chip
and then
Kelly.
they'll have the Cowboys to cap off the year, which who knows who knows where the Cowboys will be. That game probably will matter for the Cowboys, but still, there will be 3 games in a row after the bye where the defense will probably not be awful.
The Giants are going to win 1 or 2 of these games. Just full.
They could win all. They're probably Jim. Are they going to be favored in the Commanders and the Viking game?
My gut is no.
I mean, they're both at home.
I get that. But you got to realize we're still you forget what we think. This team is still a team that's blown a ton of leads. You know, they're going to have to prove it, and they're not going to have enough time to prove it before they're favored, is my guess. You know what I mean?
Want to know the last time the Giants have not scored more than 20 points?
The last time they have not scored more than 20 points. Boy, it used to be the other way. When was the last time they scored 20 points? Now it's the last time they have not scored more than 20 points. Did they get there in the Chief game? I forget.
They did not, but it's the Saints game, week 5. The Giants have scored. They finished with 14.
I forgot they only scored 14. I know they had turned the ball over 5 straight times, but for some reason I thought they still got to like 23 points in that game.
It has been since October 5th, and we are at the end of November. There will be no more football games played in November for the New York Giants. The Giants have gone 2 months without having a game where they have scored less than 20 points. Now, I will say 1, 2, 3 games, they've scored exactly 20 points. So this is a little bit of like a, stat picking, but still, man, like
that's crazy. Man, you know what? Of all the losses this year, the Saint one probably sucks the most when you consider the opponent and the only scoring.
Yeah, I agree. That and that's the game where I sat here, Shaun, I was so pissed, and you were like, "Yeah, all right."
Yeah, I know. They beat the Eagles the next week, though. I wasn't wrong.
They did, and then we've lost 6 straight, and then we have lost 6 straight. Yeah, so I do think like this defense is, and this is where I have a hard time, and I feel bad if this is bad radio, man. Like I have a hard time sitting here, like telling everybody that, this is again, like bad fan, bad podcast, or whatever you want to call me. I know everybody's looking for their flesh of blood with Shane Bowen, but
I think
sorry.
It's pound of flesh. Pound of flesh is what we're going for.
Crap, I did it again. What did I say? Pound of flesh?
No, you said flesh of blood.
What the I know everybody's looking to be angry and like, the bad man's gone, but if they beat the Commanders, Vikings, Raiders, whether they win one of those games, 2 of those games, dude, honestly, they could win all 3. I mean, they could especially beat the Vikings and the Raiders with just how awful their offense is right now.
They just hung with the Lions. They've hung with the Broncos. They've hung with all the teams. So I can't tell you they can't, but again, they don't win these games. They have made another change at DC. I'm not going to get sucked in, Justin. I'm always the first sucker. You could be the sucker. I'm not getting sucked in.
All right. That's crazy.
Is it not?
That's what she said.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's just not going to get me. It's not going to get me excited. I want this season to end. I want Joe Shane to be held accountable for the awful roster that he's built. And guess what? When I read all these stats about the horrible run defense and horrible this, horrible that, when it's this historically bad, it is not just one person. Like you said earlier, we cannot fall victim to this same mentality as Giants fans, where again, over and over again, you blame one thing and you fix the one thing and it's going to fix everything. Yep. This problem is they are so awful on the defensive side of the ball right now. I refuse to believe it is just the defense coordinator. Because you want to know what? Even with the last defense coordinator, who we all like, and we're all citing as an example of what Shane Bowen should have been and the type of defense that maybe he should have run, even with him. And he had a background of having a top run defense in the National Football League. Even the run defense was bad with him too.
Yep. Didn't stop the run anyway. I'm with you. Look, I do hope that at least at a bare minimum, what Charlie Bolin should bring is just 5 games where the players see that the organization made change and buy in a little bit and hope he's got to change something in terms of like players feeling like they are in a position to succeed, because they are still playing their ass off on in a game where they were about to be eliminated and lose their 10th game. They are clearly playing their ass off. It's not like they're not giving up, chunk plays because they've quit on a football field, and that's what's killing them.
Yeah. All right, man. I think Shaun, do you have anything else, man?
No, I mean, this is an odd one. This is a rare one, but this is what's great about the podcast world with the Giants. We are 15 hours removed from looking at each other and breaking down a game, and here we are breaking down a firing, and we're still able to turn out another 40 minutes breaking that all down, huh? Justin, one day, you and I will do a podcast in November where we talk about what teams do we need to lose to make sure we're set up for the right seeding in the playoffs. One day we will get there.
One day.
And not be talking about the second firing in season.
I think they currently have the second overall pick in the NFL draft. That's going to go away because, I really do think they're going to win some of these games.
And this will be my little, like, spoiler alert, because I've been, like, a big tankist for a long time. They have their quarterback. Yes, if they picked first or second, a trade slot would be enormous. And if you want to root for losses, by all means do that. Do not sit here today and talk about at Thanksgiving, hey, if the Giants get the second overall pick, what would you do? They're not going to have the second overall pick. I would be floored if the Giants are picking first or second overall. Not that I think they're going to win all the games, Justin is saying, but the team is probably going to end up with like 4 wins this year. And
I legitimately think, I'm putting this out there right now, I think they beat the Commanders. I think they beat the Vikings. I think they beat the Raiders, and they finish the year 5-12. And they're going to use, they may use that 3.
I'm going to say they lose to the Commanders, but beat the Vikings and Raiders.
They may use that 3-game winning streak of we finally played bad teams. We finally played bad teams. We finally didn't play a team that's literally contending for a division title and or like the number 1 seed. We finally faced some teams that were bad, and then we beat them. See?
Oh, that's how Shane's keeping his job, but Kafka won't be the coach off that.
No, Kafka won't be the coach off that.
Keep in mind.
I moved on from that.
Keep in mind with this. 2004, Eli Manning, after all those losses on the final game of the year, turned an audible, handed it to Tiki Barber, and they beat the Dallas Cowboys, setting up the Eli era. And Eli has said forever how much confidence that gave him. Jackson Dart beating the Cowboys in the final game of the year. How fun would that be?
Jeff, Jeff, you're a Cowboy fan. Is this Cowboy team different now with this defense? Unmute yourself. Yeah, I can hear you.
Having a superstar is much different. Having a superstar like Quinn Williams is much different. Like, he sets up the rest of the team better.
I don't think that played well, but he said having a superstar like Quinn Williams is much different.
Okay. All right, so this defense may be different.
Great.
That's because that's the X factor.
They're still the Cowboys, and that's still a game in January.
That's a good point. All right. Shane Bowen fired. Now I don't know what I'm going to like. Are we going to do a mailbag? Or what are we going to do with the preview pod? I have no clue what we're going to do now. I still kind of want to do a mailbag because I like mailbags and I kind of miss them.
Can I ask a dumb talking Giants question that I didn't even ask you before we did this? Was this just live or is this a podcast also?
We were live.
I knew we were live, but is this also going out as a podcast or was this strictly for live? Oh, okay.
100%. 100%. We don't mess around.
I don't call the shots. I just turn on the microphone, folks.
We don't mess around. I'm glad you didn't say anything. Like, you knew that we were live streaming, right?
I knew that. Okay. I knew we were live. I didn't know if it was live stream exclusive, if you will.
No, not a live stream exclusive.
Okay.
Not a live stream exclusive. All right. We'll see you when we see you. Maybe for a mailbag, maybe not. Shane Bowen fired. Go Giants. We'll win one day. Peace.